Greetings and welcome to Fright Night Flix, where every night is Fright Night. Before I get into my favourite non-horror films of the year, I thought it'd be fun to first talk about the other end of the spectrum, my top 10 least favourite non-horror films of 2025. I usually base these choices on films I generally thought I was going to love, but instead walked away feeling incredibly disappointed. A bad film doesn't always disappoint me if I know it's going to be bad, unless it's really bad. Disappointments hit hard when expectations are high. As always, this is just my personal opinion, so please don't get upset if your favourite movie or one of your favourite movies ends up on this list. And just to be clear, I did not watch the War of the Worlds film on Amazon, so that one won't be included on this list. So without further ado, here are my picks for the top 10 worst non-horror films of 2025.
Then let's get started.
Kicking off this list at number 10 is Edward Berger's follow-up to Conclave, The Ballad of a Small Player. On paper, this should have kicked all my boxes. Edward Berger directing, sold. Colin Farrell as the lead, sold. Tilda Swinton in a supporting role, sold. Visually, the film is fantastic, Berger's style is unmistakable, but the writing just didn't deliver. The story felt like it was going nowhere, the characters had nothing going for them, and Colin's performance wasn't quite at the level I come to expect. I even thought he was better in A Bold, Beautiful Journey, and only that was a mid-tier film.
See, nobody cares.
Berger has given us one of my favourite films of the decade with All Quiet on the Western Front, so I expected so much more here. It annoys me to put this film on this list. Get me wrong, Conclave had slow moments too, but at least it had a narrative and characters moving somewhere. This one, not so much. Maybe it's my fault for expecting too much from it. In ninth place, we have a Minecraft movie. Full disclosure, I don't play Minecraft and honestly I don't care for it much. Seeing the first trailer made me dread this one. The film starts amusingly, setting up the characters and the world, but as it progresses, it becomes more painfully generic and flat. Sure, there are some fun performances, but the characters go on a journey with zero self-discovery, which makes the whole film feel like a waste of time.
It was a huge waste of time.
And there's the CGI. About 90% of this film is green-screened, lifeless CGI that rarely feels grounded. I think they really missed a trick here. Imagine a Lego movie-style approach with the Minecraft world animated in the signature blocky style. That would have been charming. Instead, we're left with a painfully generic cash grab that never reaches its full potential. In 8th place, we have The Alto Knights, a film that should have felt like a classic mob epic in the vein of Goodfellas and The Godfather, two of my favourite movies. Rob De Niro stars in a dual role as 50s mob bosses Vito Giovetti and Frank Costello, which on paper feels like an interesting but risky choice.
Weird.
Unfortunately, this was another huge disappointment, and most of that comes down to the writing. The film is painfully boring. What makes Goodfellas and The Godfather masterpieces is their storytelling, and that's exactly what this film lacks. While the direction is overall fine, Robert De Niro's performance comes across as more gimmicky than authentic, which is really disappointing considering he's one of the greatest actors of all time. Instead of feeling like two fully realised characters, it often feels like a stunt. I really wanted this film to be better and take more risks. I love to see mob films make a proper comeback. But with failures like this, it's sad to say that this era of cinema might be generally over. In 7th place, we have the British crime comedy Marching Powder. I admit, I have a genuine guilty pleasure for Danny Dyer films, with The Business and Vendetta being two of my favourites. Because of that, I was hoping Marching Powder would be his big return to the kind of films he used to do best. While it does share some of that familiar DNA, it ultimately lets itself down by telling a story that just isn't really that interesting.
Not a great plan.
Nick Love is a capable filmmaker, but you can tell his return to directing is a little rusty, and it really shows here. Feels like Dyer and Love simply wanted to make a film together again after all these years. And sure, they're a solid duo, but this is the story they chose to reunite for? The film never lives up to the hype it creates for itself. That's exactly why it ended up on this list. In 6th place is Disney's live-action Snow White. Despite a few minor changes, a fleshed-out love interest, a rebellion subplot, and the oddly pointless reveal that Snow White got her name from Blizzard, the film hits all the same beats as the 1937 original. Nothing new is added to justify its existence, making the story feel predictable, dull, and completely lacking in stakes.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Rachel Zegler is fine in the role, even if she doesn't suit the classic look. Her singing is generally strong, and some of the new songs work, especially Waiting on a Wish. Unfortunately, these positives feel wasted on a film that doesn't know what to do with her talent. This should have been an original princess film instead of another forced remake. The biggest issue is the production. For a $300 million movie, it looks shockingly cheap. The CGI, especially the magical creatures replacing the Seven Dwarfs, is uncanny and distracting, and the sets feel artificial. Even Mandy Walker's cinematography can't save Mark Webb's flat direction. Delta Go's Evil Queen is the final nail in the coffin. She's barely present, brings no menace, and the iconic transformation scene is stripped of all its creepiness. Aside from a decent magic mirror design, this remake adds nothing of value. While it's not the worst Disney remake, it's still a disappointing one, basically. In 5th place is Flight Risk, Mel Gibson's first directorial effort since Hacksaw Ridge. A contained thriller set almost entirely inside a small plane, the film follows a pilot transporting an air marshal and a fugitive across Alaska. While the premise sounds promising, it's a surprisingly small and restrained project for a director known for epic storytelling, and unfortunately it doesn't play into its strengths at all.
Ain't it obvious?
The single location setting severely limits the film. With almost no exterior shots of the plane, the cinematography feels repetitive rather than tense, making the film look cheaper than it should. The pacing quickly becomes stale, and with only 3 characters, the story simply doesn't justify its 90-minute runtime. There just isn't enough happening to sustain interest. Mark Wahlberg's performance is flat and inspiring, made worse by a distracting bald cap that never looks convincing. Topher Grace almost feels miscast, delivering a wooden performance that lacks menace or depth. The only really highlight is Michelle Gotti, who gives a performance that's generally strong, even though she can't save it. Overall, Flight Risk feels like a major step down for Mel Gibson as a filmmaker. Coming from the director of Hacksaw Ridge, this film feels shockingly unfocused and forgettable, and easily one of the most disappointing non-horror films of the year. In 4th place is G20, a film that clearly wants to be in the same vein as Olympus Has Fallen or White House Down, but without any of the fun or the tension. The idea of setting an action film around the G20 summit is solid, but the execution is painfully generic. The film plays out like a mad lib of action cliches and never fully commits to being exciting. Visually, the movie is completely uninspired. The cinematography is flat with no standout shots or memorable sequences. It often feels like the director, Patricia Regan, isn't quite sure how to handle a film of this scale or genre. Nothing here elevates the material beyond the bare minimum. Viola Davis is usually excellent, but she's given very little to work with. The same goes for Anthony Starr and Anthony Anderson, all talented actors who feel wasted. The film relies far too heavy on star power instead of giving its cast stronger characters or a compelling story to play with, which makes the disappointment even stronger given Davis's Oscar-winning pedigree. Overall, G20 is another forgettable straight-to-streaming action flop. It's all the ingredients for a solid thriller, but never manages to rival by being bland, functional, or in many moments, even watchable.
That was impressively cunty.
Before I give you my worst 3, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to Fright, Flix, and follow us on social media so you don't miss a single scare. What are your worst non-horror films of 2025? Please let me know in the comments down below, and make sure you check out all my past reviews on the channel. Now, back to the top 3.
But I want it now!
Taking the bronze spot is Disney's live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch. This one hurt a bit more than Snow White because the 2002 original is a genuine staple of 2000 childhood, including my own, and it's a film I still love as an adult.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
That emotional attachment makes this remake especially hard to forgive. For its credit, it's better made than Snow White from a filmmaking standpoint, and it does have a few decent moments. But ultimately, it's a forgettable and uninspired retelling of a classic that never justifies its existence. The biggest misstep is removing Gantu as the main antagonist and shifting that role to Jumba without giving him his redemption arc, a choice that completely undermines the heart of the story. If this had been an original film, I'd probably be more forgiving. If it functions well enough on its own, but as a remake of something so beloved, the flaws stand out even more. You can't help but constantly compare it to the original, and that comparison only leads to disappointment. My runner-up this year is After the Hunt, the latest film from Luca Guadagnino, a project that looked primed for award season. With Julia Roberts in the lead and strong supporting turns from Ayo Ediri and Andrew Garfield, this should have been a serious contender. The story follows a college professor, played by Roberts, caught in the middle of a sexual abuse accusation involving a student who Ediri plays and a colleague who Garfield plays. And it's a premise that sounds timely and compelling. Instead, this film is a massive drag. The plot moves at a glance pace, none of the characters are particularly likeable, relatable, or even interesting, and Guadagnino's direction feels strangely off throughout. While Roberts, Ediri and Garfield all give serviceable performance, I know they're far capable of better, and I expect more from talent at this level. Ultimately, After the Hunt feels like the most failed Oscar bait film of 2025. It had all the right ingredients to dominate award season, but poor execution turns it into a frustrating waste of time. Here's hoping Julia Roberts returns to something worthy of her legacy and remind everyone why she was once such a major awards player.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Before I reveal my number one pick, here are a few honourable, or in this case, dishonourable mentions. The Old Guard 2, a massive disappointment of a sequel, especially because the first one was so fun. Another simple favour. This felt like a more expensive fan film for streaming content instead of an actual film. Havoc. Tom Hardy should stop doing these trashy films and do a second season of Taboo. Love Hurts. Ki-Hu Kwan just isn't cut out to be a leading role. The Electric State. I can see why the Russos have gone back to Marvel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is my worst non-horror film of 2025, which is taking the number one spot as my worst non-horror film of 2025 is Ethan Coen's Honey Don't, his follow-up film to Drive-Away Dolls. I actually like Drive-Away Dolls more than most, so I went into this really wanting to enjoy it. Unfortunately, every criticism people had of Drive-Away Dolls is exactly what I had with this one, only amplified. The story is painfully slow, the characters are bland, and the performances can feel completely phoned in. Worst of all, the comedy simply does not work. There are jokes set up with no punchline, including a recurring gag involving Charlie Day's character failing to realise the protagonist is a lesbian, and every time it lands flat. It's not edgy, clever, or funny, it's just awkward. What makes this so disappointing is the talent behind it. Ethan Coen helped create classics like Fargo, The Big Lebowski, and No Country for Old Men, along with his brother Joel. Watching Honey Don't only reinforces how much stronger they are together. As solo filmmakers, the magic just isn't there and they need to get back together. In a nutshell, Honey Don't is my biggest disappointment of the year because I knew good talent was involved and somehow they delivered a film that falls flat on every level. And that's why Honey Don't earns the top spot as my worst non-horror film of 2025.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Thank you all for watching today's video. Join me next time when I talk about the 1973 classic The Wicker Man. But until then, stay spooky.